Hi, it's TAW Unwrapped. I'm Josh Sexton, unwrapping the big talking points from the football world, across the football world from Liverpool, I should say. Joined today by McKenna and Beth Lindop, and this is brought to you in association with NordVPN. You can get our exclusive NordVPN deal at nordvpn.com/TAW. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and if you go for the 2-year plan, you'll get 6 months for free to browse the internet with that extra peace of mind and the ability to change your virtual location so you can access geo-locked content, which can allegedly be used for things like Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs, but I'll say no more on that. The Reds are in a spot of crisis at the moment, but luckily for them, there are still millions around the world who'd love, even with just one chance, to get to go and watch them at Anfield. Some of us are lucky enough, some of us in this room are lucky enough, I promise, just to watch them on a more regular basis, but it doesn't come without its own challenges, and not just on the pitch at the moment. That's why Liverpool are set to release their latest ticketing survey to give fans a chance to have their collective voices heard on matters pertaining to the accessibility of Anfield. So from the club, this is from their sort of official statement that comes along with the survey. They said, LFC has launched a comprehensive survey to ensure supporters have a genuine say in shaping the future of ticketing policy at the club. The latest survey, which forms part of the club's ongoing ticketing review, will be sent to 500,000 supporters to ensure fans are at the centre of any future ticketing policy decisions and guarantee their collective voices are heard. Some examples of the policy areas being explored include a multi-year loyalty system. So, for example, credits being relevant for multiple seasons, credits only awarded for tickets bought via club channels such as a club sale or ticket exchange rather than for tickets being sent or received via ticket and ticket forwarding, introduction of ticket exchange for cup home fixtures, ways to protect tickets for supporters who do not meet the guaranteed threshold for ticket access, for example a reduction in the number of guaranteed games for supporters with 13 plus credits, a ring-fence pot of tickets for supporters who are not in the auto cup scheme for home cup fixtures, a ballot of a small number of tickets for some away fixtures, and ways to protect tickets for priority groups such as local and young people, for example by the introduction of a dedicated local young adult area or priority for local juniors. So loads to unpack within that for Jay, Beth and I here. I want to sort of look at those things as different areas and different bullet points for our agenda here. We've all got sort of different interests in this. I'm happy to disclose mine. I am a member, I'm not a season ticket holder, a member who got 12 credits, quite unfortunately, as Jay will know, as well as I do last season. So didn't quite meet that 13 plus guaranteed threshold, having tried for many years. I bought my membership in 2014 after the Reds went close to the league. I didn't realise it was even a thing you could do before then, and started building up credits from there to the point I'm at now. So I'm very well versed in the going for member sales, all the issues with the website they've had down the years and all these kinds of things. So hopefully can help shed a little bit of light on this. But the bullet points I want to sort of pick out from the agenda then is loyalty, ticket sharing, selling back to the club, accessibility for fans with no credits, and accessibility for young/local fans. So we'll start off with loyalty. Jay, I want to come to you first on this because I guess the worry for a lot of people, and definitely the worry for me whenever I see these surveys and some of the topics it looks to address is, are the club just setting themselves up to throw the baby out with the bathwater here? Like I, at least to my mind, don't understand why the credit system in its current form, or just as a credit system in general, doesn't necessarily work. So the idea they may start to make changes to that is something that definitely panics me, and I don't know if that's just out of self-interest for me, really.
I think something I'd say as well at the beginning of that is you were going through that list, and I'm chair of the supporters board, been in lots of conversations at Liverpool about ticketing, and we were very clear to them to say, when you've done this survey, like we have said to them, that's loads of questions you're going to get. Loads of questions coming back at you about why and what, can you do all of this stuff? And then we were like, set out a context of some of the things you have been speaking to us about or started trying to introduce to us. Some of them are in that list there. The more you kept listening, I was thinking, it's quite a list, that, isn't it? and I know how many meetings they want to have with us to talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, good luck doing all this. This is the workload of a load of volunteers then. But where the credit stuff's come from, and this is one of the areas I think where there's a supporters board, and I think there's some merit, well, more than probably a lot of merit in looking at the credit system, because what the club wants is they talk about a lot, and I think Phil Dutton's talked about this, and supporters say to us, to be fair, is we need to reward loyalty. Like, you've got to have a thing that rewards people who go regularly, because otherwise it's not just about, why would you do it because they want to go and watch Liverpool play, but like, if you go everywhere, you put them hard yards in, you travel around Europe, up and down the country, to Anfield every week, usually for going family occasions or events and at a significant expense, you deserve to be rewarded for that loyalty. And Liverpool knows that. Liverpool, as a club, say that. They market it, they sell it, the players recognise that the manager does and all of those things. What's come up in some of the discussions last year, particularly Josh, when we were kind of talking about like forwarding and distribution and some of the changes the club made last year, was that it felt like there were cliff edges in ticketing. So if you think about away games, for example, but European, maybe for more people thinking about this, count for away games, but European games, we're playing Frankfurt tomorrow, but you know, we've played games at home in the Champions League, we've got games coming up against Champions League, Real Madrid. If I didn't buy Real Madrid and I'm in the ACS, so if I miss that, I'm out. I'm out of a chance of a final ticket, because the ballot, which is what I'll get into because I only do homes, I don't do aways. For disclosure, I'm a season ticket holder, do all the home cups, don't do any aways. Is if I didn't go to Madrid for any reason and I lost the credit, I'm out forever, because I won't get nothing in the sales, most likely, for the rest of the season. I'll be out the ACS, I won't get to buy in a sale because other people will have that loyalty of that game. I probably won't be in the ballot for the final ticket, and then in the ACS the year after, it's hard. So if I can't go to that game, and the current system means I can just pass it on to someone, it's in my interest to pass it to my dad. Now, there's some people who say, well, you didn't go, Jay, so you shouldn't get the credit. And maybe in a perfect world, that'd be the case. But if I don't go, as I say, it's a cliff edge. I'm off forever. So I've got to buy. And the same thing was coming up with people talking about away games as well. That if, you know, Bournemouth, for example, very small allocation, it sells out on like 19. So you've got to have 19. But if you're a fan who's got 19, if you were a bet and you do all 19, you traipse around the country following Liverpool. But like, there's a game you can't make on a weekend because a family event, you're sick, work, you can't always, you know, deprioritise those things. If you don't buy for that, you're out of Bournemouth. So you're like, well, I couldn't do Bournemouth, but it's this game I can't miss. So you pass that on to a mate, as again happens, Spurs and that for these games. That happens. So what we were kind of noticing is this cliff edge that if you miss out, you kind of, people almost compelled to buy tickets and then figure out what they're going to do with it if they can't go. So how would you remove that? Could you do it over the course of a few seasons? And this is in the last couple of years, but certainly this summer, come to the fore about the automatic cup scheme, for example. There's people who've been in it for years going, well, I've been in it for years, doesn't that count for nothing? And I think it does in lots of our minds, but on the paper, no, it doesn't. Liverpool operates a 1-year loyalty system for this stuff, apart from now some away games, we go back multiple years. And it's kind of saying, and we've said to them, well, if you went back over multiple seasons, could you have something that kind of recognise that loyalty, but give you the gap to miss a game and not fall off forever, meant that you were still there or thereabouts. That means if I can't go, someone else can have the ticket and a spare and the credit and whatever it might be. So it removes that sense of control, removes that risk for the fan. I also think it gives fans coming in a chance to do something. So if you, this year, you know, you were on 12, as you say you only got 2 this year in your name. Next year, 2's nothing. You get nothing for it. No prizes, you don't get in the 4+ sale, you just did a random ballot. Doesn't help you anyway. But if you got 2 this year and then 6 next year, well, then you're on 8. And then if you get 60 year after, well, you're on the 13+, then, aren't you? So, like, can you give people a chance to build loyalty as well? So it's not just giving people at the top end or with existing loyalty a chance to miss games without the risk of falling off it. Because if you just arbitrarily say, no, you'll lose your credit, people will find ways around the system. There'll be burner phones, there'll be phones being passed around, there'll be all that stuff, because people would feel that sense of grievance of missing out. So I think it's worth looking at, but it needs a big conversation, because it would be one of the biggest ticketing changes in, well, my lifetime. We've only changed the loyalty system 3 times. We went from serial numbers on season tickets to fan cards to the kind of digital stuff we have now. We've not changed it 3 times in my lifetime. I'm 38, so this would be quite big. We think there's space to do it, but it needs a big conversation with fans.
And this is the thing, Beth, I guess you can sort of look at this from 2 points of view, really, because you've got the sort of fan head with your access to tickets, and then you've got the sort of journalist aspect of it as well. And Jay's right, like I was going through that survey yesterday, like doing it for myself, my own interest, really, and so much of it, like there's a lot of fair questions in there, and I knew exactly how to answer the fair questions. There's a lot of ones that I was almost like, as a fan, I don't really know how I can answer these, so I just put not sure for a lot of things. A lot of things where I was a bit like, the club are almost asking me that because it's like they don't want to make the big decision there, they'd rather we made it instead. And a lot of those I just answered not sure, because I was like, I'm not doing your work for you, so sort of Jay, that might create a bit more work for you as well.
To me, loads of
But that's the thing is, like, just with the credit system in particular, I wonder if, because Jay says there's going to be so much work to do here, there's going to be such a load of conversations that need to be had. Does changing the credit system in its current guise actually move the needle enough at all in terms of opening up what people are perceiving as a closed shop?
It's so difficult because it's 500,000 people it said that it sent the survey to. I mean, you are never, ever going to get a general consensus, even a majority census, from consensus rather, from that number of people. And everyone will have different viewpoints, and there are so many of them that are valid. And like Jay says, technically, if you miss one game, if you miss Real Madrid because you're sick or because you've got work or because you've got a family commitment, is it 100% fair that then you get to keep the credit if you pass it on to a family member, whatever? No. But then also, if that's the only cup game that you've missed in 5 years, is it fair that then you should, go to the back of the queue with people who've been, I guess, less invested perhaps than you have? So it's such a difficult one. Like you say, then do you look at it and think, well, what's in operation now isn't a perfect system, but it's so tough. I really don't envy people like Jay who have to sort of get involved in these conversations, because it is a massive conversation. And I think that's the thing, it's not just a case of a few fans ticking a few boxes on a survey. It is about, hearing different viewpoints. And I think unfortunately, there's not a silver bullet. There's no one way that is 100% fair. We sit here as people who, whether obviously it's, I now go in a journalist capacity, but prior to that went on a season ticket, and all of us in this room are very, very lucky we get to go and watch Liverpool play regularly. So our viewpoint is going to be completely different to people sat at home thinking, I can't get to a match, or I've got family members who've got no chance of ever getting on the ladder, if you like. So it is really difficult. I don't feel like I've answered the question at all.
No.
But it is so tough, and it is, like Jay said, it's a big conversation to be had, and it's one that needs to be discussed at length, I think, with so many different viewpoints sort of coming into it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, and I guess the credit thing bleeds into the ticket sharing thing really there, Jay, because you and Beth have both referenced it, like what happens if you have to miss out, and then losing that credit means that you drop out of any kind of schemes or anything, and that will be something that for you in particular, but also Liverpool in general will have to look at. And the ticket sharing thing I is where I do have like some sympathy with the club, because you're never going to be able to find a perfect solution to that. I don't think, like Beth even mentions there, the idea that there could be someone who's not gone to Anfield for years because they just decided the team were a bit shit or whatever, and then suddenly they want to come back in, and they're going to be rewarded for having the credits over a couple of years ago, and they're then going to be on the same keel as a fan who's been going, exactly, yeah.
And this is why all of this is so hard. You can have probably opposing views, as you just said there. Is something 100% fair either way? Probably no. Both of those things can be right at the same time, and the club's going to have a challenge on trying to, I think, side on that. But my worry is if you don't make it, there's a carrot and stick to ticket, and I think, if you can encourage with the carrot to do the right thing and build good systems and fair systems, you encourage people to do the right thing. But if they feel forced, they're going to try and protect the best interests. And if I go think of ticket sharing, I largely give my ticket to a few people. I can't name them all now. My mate's kids, if I couldn't go, one of them had my derby ticket, I was away. If I couldn't go to Real Madrid, as it was, I was literally going to have this risk because it was at a work thing, but it's moved a day. My dad would have my ticket. My dad doesn't want one credit. And particularly if it denies me the final. So he'd probably just say to me, because your phone. And I'd probably do that. I wouldn't lie. Now, does that break a rule? Yeah, it absolutely does. But people will be driven to doing that. I think the thing you've got to kind of ask is, what is it we're trying to address? Is it the person who's helping someone out? I can't go, so does someone else want to go? Or my mate's home from Australia, do you want to go on a spare? I've done that for my mates, I've sorted spares out. We've all probably started going to the game on a spare ticket. Of someone, it's been a big culture. It is a thing, particularly where demand outstrips supply. But you probably have got some people who are taking a piss with the system. You've got people who, and Liverpool would say this, and some fans say this to us, don't go to a single game, pass the ticket on for all of them, tickets on a burner phone, pass on all, forward all of their European games, for example, but want the final ticket. We see people I know people who've gone on people's tickets for European away games, and then the person's gone, no, I'll have that back for the final, kind of thing. That needs addressing. I don't know the how though, because the analogy we often give to Liverpool is, if you think you're out there trying to catch sharks with your big net, you're going to catch a load of other fish as well at the same time. If you can just catch your sharks, no fan's going to say nothing to you. But my issue, as I have seen sometimes, is it's a bit like they cast a wide net and others get caught up in that, and legitimate behaviour as such from people gets caught up. And then I think we get into this real hard argument. Then I was saying before we started recording, or like I've seen it on the forums, so no, you shouldn't be able to pass your ticket on at all. It's like really, like we're going to come down very hard just so that doesn't happen. Like I heard Gibbo talking about a season ticket. His dad's on when he interviewed Phil Dutton on this, and would encourage people to go back and listen to that. It's like, I think that's dead contentious. Do you get to pass your season ticket on? Do you get to share it? Do you get to forward it on to other people? That's an element of ticket sharing. And I think if you're on the season ticket waiting list, you're going, nah, you shouldn't. And I absolutely get that person's perspective. But I also heard Gibbo going, I went with my dad. So it's not about that empty person seat, it's about the person who sat next to them. My mate, if they stop going, would I want to go and sit there on my own for weeks? No. So what do you do? What's fair there? And I think it's like, it's understanding what is the problem we're trying to solve. Is it the people who are not attending games or passing them on? Absolutely look at ways to do that. But don't impact the fan who's passing them on because they can't attend because of work, or they're having a bad time, or they're skint, or they've got a lot going on in their life, they just had a kid or something like that, because they're just legitimate things. One of the things the club talks about is its ticketing principles, and as a supporters board we wrote some, and one of the things we said is you should have ticketing policies, but they have to flex for modern life, and that's work, kids, sickness, family and other caring responsibilities. Give people a flex. If you have a thing where you break the rule or you go outside of that and you're out forever, people aren't going to buy into that. De-incentive to the right thing, yeah.
And especially now with games being moved really short notice sometimes for TV and things like that, I think it just completely de-incentivizes people doing the right thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Beth, is they've already tightened the rules around ticket sharing this season. I believe it's only one forward per game. There's a certain amount of forward you can do within a season as well now. And that's the question I sort of like asked to the club really, is like, I would quite like to know how much that's actually helped, because I know it's made it harder for somebody like me to pass the ticket on, and that that might be the sort of the bane of someone else's existence, the fact that I could have passed that ticket on maybe 3 times between 3 different memberships before, but it used to make it easier for me to be able to do that if I couldn't go to a game. So it's like, it's balancing that thing of what we've talked about already. How do you cover legit reasons like an illness or like a family emergency or something that means that you can't go, and you might not have that one person that's sort of next in line for you to send the ticket on to, but you don't want to put it back into the club's ticket exchange because that might be your season ticket, and you might have just wanted to give it away for free, and suddenly you're selling it back to the club, and then they get the money that goes from the sale of that. But then equally, I can understand it from the club point of view, because they'll say, well, you're now not being able to send it on 3 times means we can keep a sort of tighter ship, and I guess tighter net, to use Jay's analogy, on who are the people who were touting before and who are the people who were sending it on loads and loads of times a season and 3 times per game and all those kinds of things. That's where I do just have sympathy again with both sides, really.
Yeah, and I mean, touting obviously is a massive problem, and the club have obviously clamped down on it, and rightly so, and it's not just at Liverpool, it's across football, across the Premier League. So it is a really tough one. It would be interesting to know how much that has helped, to sort of get the numbers on how the club feel like that has, positively impacted things, if it has at all. But I think, just going back to Jay's point earlier on about the season ticket thing and passing season tickets down and things, and the loyalty element of that. I was super lucky. I ended up getting a season ticket through I ended up getting it through an amnesty in the end, and I'm very, very fortunate that I got that. And there'll be people who'll say, well, that shouldn't have happened. That should have gone to someone on the waiting list. And I completely understand that point. But then it's like, my dad has been going for 50 years.
Yeah.
And technically it's not fair that his loyalty should sort of transfer to me, but ultimately that's what football is. At its core, it is about sort of people, families, generations of families supporting a club and going along, and that being passed down from father to son to daughter to son to daughter. You know what I mean? And it's so difficult, because by the letter of the law, that how is that fair when there's people who've been on a waiting list for 15 years? It's probably not. But ultimately, you know, I think it's even people at the club will understand that that is just the way that it is sometimes.
Well, that's why they're asking that question in the
Yeah.
survey, because they haven't got a set policy on it. And I think it's one of those things, you're going to annoy people whatever you do,
Yeah.
which is why I wouldn't have asked the question and I just thought about what you want the policy to be. But ultimately, you can't, just because now, I'm not saying like as if everyone's just rocked up lately to come and watch Liverpool, but now that it's much more popular, because there's people who've got those seasons, if it's your dad, his generation, who will tell you how Liverpool literally relied on that season ticket money.
Yeah.
In the 80s, particularly when we were out of Europe and stuff like that, they relied on it. And buying a ticket at Liverpool, you know, season ticket sales, they wanted the money in the beginning of the season. You know, the deadline is what the deadline is now because of the financial accounting year for Liverpool. So it's a big chunk of money. So you can't like kind of say, well, all right, yeah, sound, well, they're popular now, so, and everyone wants to come and they can afford to come, so, sorry, we're going to disregard stuff we've done before. You inherit the club for all the good stuff it does now, and it's past. And it's past meant people could pass these tickets on and do what they've done there. And they feel all right to you. You've told people you belong, it's your ticket. The terms and conditions do technically state it belongs to Liverpool at all times, but it's kind of tough, innit? Like, you can't tell people, sometimes you do, it's yours to do what you want with it, sometimes it's not. Have that honest conversation. And if you're the fan who hasn't got one, you don't want to do that, but you don't think that you should be allowed to do that. But at the same time, I got mine through an amnesty. And it wasn't a family member, it was somebody who wasn't going. I was going for 10 years. Liverpool didn't, you know, I paid in my name. The email address was in my name. Like, I was campaigning against the club at the time, was pretty well known. Liverpool never knocked onto me and said that you're going in that other lad's name there. So they could have easily done that if it was wrong, but they knew it happened. So I kind of think it's one of those things where fans who've got it like it, fans who don't have it don't like it. But if I look at my lad, and being really selfish, taking me supporters board hat off on this, my lad's 5. He's never getting on the season ticket waiting list. The youngest person on the season ticket waiting list is probably in the 30s now. So what are you going to do? What does he do? His best chance of going to the match regularly is me or one of my mates giving him a season ticket Monday. And that's bad as well. So how do we get that next generation? And like, all of these things collide. Season ticket sharing is just about that person on the list. It's about the next generation, which is what it's done traditionally. If you look at the demographics of ticket and type, season tickets is the most scouse section of our ticket and type. There's a chunk in the membership, but it's the most scouse type. And that's in part because of what's been happening there, right or wrong. It's like, you know, there is a danger you throw the baby out with the bathwater on any of these policies. It's going back to your point before, Josh.
And that's the thing. Like, I want to come back to you on this, Jay, because like the what me and Beth saying there about the club maybe sort of publishing these results of any of these changes they make, so like letting people know how many accounts they've banned for touting or whatever. But then you'll have seen, as much as I've seen with a couple of my mates this season, that like there's been legit accounts that have been banned there for wrong reasons and for different things. So there'll be how many of those people that the club would include in subsequent figures would then be, well, actually they were just legit accounts that got caught in that sort of crossfire of this trying to clamp down on touting and the sharks, as you called them.
Yeah, my second favourite topic after talking about ticket is dealing with sanctions. Although, to be fair, the team are really good there in terms of talking to us on it. They should publish those figures more. They should publish the ticket figures about, you know, kind of as it meant more people are utilising the season ticket. We've seen some stuff as sports board. It's not finalised yet, so I think there will be some numbers we'd hope to try and push out to show if it's having an impact or not. Because if you're going to go through all this pain, you've got to see it's worth something. And we've already done a lot of change. I think that the thing when it comes to sanctions then is this is where it collides. Because I think if you said to people about touting and sanctions, it's almost a bit like Google and tax avoidance. Everyone has done has paid someone cash in hand for a job, or knows someone who has. You know, the builder, painter, someone's paid someone cash in hand to do a job, and they're avoiding paying some tax and VAT on that, no doubt. Everyone turns a blind eye to make Google and Starbucks are at it, or whoever. Don't sue me using users figuratively. But, you know, big companies who've been accused of not paying their fair share of tax, they're at the top end. Well, all right, well, if they don't do it, you know, the person at the bottom shouldn't do it. So people then look at some of the sanction stuff and go, mine's a minor infringement, or passed me ticket onto a mate, or found a way to pass the ticket onto a mate. And then there's people walking around with bags full of burner phones. Like, go and get them, deal with that problem first. And I think, listen, the club is serious. I don't know how many times I've heard it mentioned to me in the last few months about dealing with touting. I'm like, No one's stopping you dealing with touts. You go and deal with touting. But your rules around that then bleed into ticketing. And I think this is where we need an honest conversation among supporters, is what is fair or not. And I would just say no one's going to agree on this, because my experience of this so far is people being like, and not just scouts, not just kind of season ticket holders, this one is my ticket, I should be able to do what I want. I pay, I go everywhere. If I can't go, I should be able to pass it on to people, blah, blah, blah. People who recognise that through their mates and friends and family, even if they don't go themselves, and then a load of other people who go, if you don't go, you give it back to the club and no one else is allowed to do nothing with it. And if you don't, you're at it, or you're whatever. And it's like, that also isn't true, is it? Like, it's so incredibly difficult, but we need some clear rules on what is or isn't right. But before we get to rules, this is the big bit. It's important the club's doing the survey. It's important we talk about it on this. Yeah. Sports boards do something later on this as well, is we need a big public discussion, because I think there's people who answer surveys and other topics, and maybe listening now, who go, well, I think you should do this. What I'd love to, and I haven't got the time, absolutely, I've not got the time, is to kind of sit in this conversation and go, well, it's like chess, innit? Because if you move that piece has got to move. Do you want that move? And you might say you do, but your mate doesn't, and that affects your chance of your kid getting a tick in the chest. Like, everything has a consequence. And I don't think people realise that they're answering survey questions sometimes and discussing topics in isolation, and we kind of need to pick one or two things and then build up from there, which is why for me I do multi-year stuff, look at that first and then add on other rules, because at the minute it just feels like everyone wants everything to change according to their individual things, and we actually don't build a ticketing system, we just build a kind of, it's not strategic, it's just tactical.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Beth, like we're all sort of, even if we try and suppress it as much as we can, like we're all going to be ruled to some degree by self-interest in this. Like I can say that for sure from my own point of view. You know, me and Jay have had conversations about it already, but on the topic of the club's ticket exchange, it's a thing that sort of fries my brain a little bit, the whole process of it, because I had my own issues with buying season ticket seats last season, not being properly labelled by the club, and then basically missing out on what I thought were credits that I should have got for them, but I didn't, because they weren't correctly labelled by the club at the time. And then I should have been in those guaranteed sales tickets this season, and suddenly I'm not, so I'm going to have an issue with that system. But there's loads of other parts of the system that I actually benefit off compared to somebody who's trying to get on the ladder, for example. So it's trying to find that sort of catch-all solution, or something that's like representing close to catch-all, while also, you know, as we both sort of alluded to, that me and Jay, like stopping the sharks and stopping the touts and stopping the people who are exploiting the system. Like how the club even gets close to a point of finding out how to do that without just going like, right, every single time you want to pass a ticket on, it all comes back to us, and we'll give you the fair price for it that we believe is fair, and we'll sell it back for that price. We won't make a penny off it. And one of the other things that winds me up is whenever I go in for tickets in sales now, like the quickest thing and the quickest way to get a ticket is to auto select a seat, and the club have lashed all their hospitality seats in that now as well. So I'm there like getting a little dopamine boost of, oh, I've got a ticket, and suddenly it's 750 quid in the main stand sat in my basket. I'm like, well, I'm definitely not paying that.
Yeah, it's impossible to have this conversation without sort of self-interest creeping in, and that's only natural. And again, like I say, you know, there's a lot of people at the club, football people, who understand how all of this works and have sympathy for people. So it's, you know, it's not just like the club are saying, you know, we want to do this to make everyone's lives harder, because it's not. That's not what it is. But I mean, you know, I know and have known loads of people who've passed on tickets, whether that be sort of through a legitimate way or phones or whatever, because it happens, and pretty much everyone that I know who's ever done that has done it for legitimate reasons. It's not been to tout it and to make money over face value. It's been to help someone out because they need a spare, and it's, you know, a last minute thing, or because, you know, they want a friend or a family member to go. And again, it comes back to that thing about it, to the letter of the law, that not being right. But should they then get the same treatment as someone who is literally touting, who is making, you know, hundreds, thousands of pounds off selling these, you know, going around giving people burner phones? No, absolutely not. But obviously for the club, it's difficult, because what is the correct way to make that distinction? I don't know. And I think that is sort of the presiding theme here. I don't think there is one set way that you can make everything completely fair. That there isn't. But you know, there obviously are people who do need, there needs to be something implemented to stop that, because while the club might have clamped down on it, there's still people that do it.
Well, none of the changes last year or that's been talked about this year stop a burner phone.
Yeah.
And that's what fans say to me. Listen, I am not paid enough money in my own job to worry about something like this and be away from this issue. We get nothing off Liverpool for being volunteers doing this. You couldn't pay me enough money to deal with this issue for Liverpool for a whole host of reasons. But if Liverpool are serious about doing that, people would look at it and go, well, what does this do to stop a burner phone? Now, I know there'll be people listening to this, well, it's biometrics and all that, but it's like, mate, but then like you're getting into the realms of like impacting everybody.
Yeah.
Do you imagine a queue at 5 to 8, you know, Real Madrid at home in a few weeks' time, you know, November night, and, you know, everyone's got hats, scarves, hoods up and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, mate, that retina scanner's not saying it's you. It's like, well, mate, it is. It's 5 to 8, get me in that car, that kind of thing, do you know what I mean? So it's not, and it's not likely in all of this stuff anyway, anytime soon. So, like, don't think there's an easy solution to this. But what's also happened, you come to your point before, Joshua, the kind of forward and 3-1 thing, is what that's exposed is that there were loads of people who were using that mechanism to swap tickets.
Yeah.
With people with, I've got a season ticket in the Cop, but my mate's got one in the main stand, and my other mate's got one in the main stand, and it meant I could go with my kid in the main stand then, and he'd have my Cop ticket. When you used to have a fan card, beginning of the season, loads of people I know used to just swap their literal fan card. I know mate who work with, he used to literally meet someone outside the HCC and swap his ticket, because some games he'd go in the main stand and the lad would go in the Cop. So how do you do that? How do you make that work for people? Now, what's the technical solution to those swaps things, where how can I get someone a spare? You know, you've got to make this current system work and actually say to yourself, well, what is wrong in that? If not just what do you want to get to, but what is wrong in what someone does now? If I got a spare and I can't go, and I want Liverpool to answer this, because I've got 18 friends and family spaces, there's only one minute, I couldn't go to the derby, I was away. There's fans who'd listen to this and go, Jay, you can't go, give it back to the next person who's a member. I gave me ticket to my mate's lad. He got to go to his first Merseyside derby. He's 6, he's made up, he had a boss day. His dad probably didn't enjoy the game as much having him next to him. But I think that's fair and fine. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. And there'll be fans listening to that saying, you're right. There'll be fans listening to this and saying, you're wrong. My question to Liverpool will be, well, what do you think that is? Yeah. Because I don't make, in all of this discussion, fans are talking to each other. None of us are making ticketing policy. For better or for worse for them. Phil Zutton's got that responsibility with other staff inside the club. They've got to decide this. But I'd ask fans to kind of think, well, just because you think that's unfair doesn't mean that's going to happen as well. Doesn't mean it is unfair. Because for everyone, as I say, in that scenario goes, it's wrong. It's also right. For everyone who says, Josh, when you've got 12, you should be happy, but you've missed out on the 13 plus. Yeah. That's a big thing. There's arbitrary deadlines. So there is arguments about, do you change that? Do you have? Well, Josh, you've got 12, you're entitled to buy 12 next year, because you've got a big drop-off. So if you're in the 13 plus, you want, and this has come up, hasn't it, you know, should 13 plus be entitled to buy for all games? That's one of the questions. Yeah. It's generated the most debate. We'd literally seen that, and I won't lie, like, who likes Liverpool, like, I'm not talking to him about that. I've like literally said, I'm not coming to a meeting stuff. I'm not doing it. Do what you want. I'm not doing it. We want no part in it. It's wrong. You know, if you want to talk about tickets, put everyone's tickets on the table. But there's fans who are coming to me and rightly saying, well, maybe it's that, well, you've got 12, you buy 12. Because in your case, you've just missed out on 13 plus, but now you're in the 4 plus. Yeah. You've got 8 games extra loyalty over someone else, but you've got as much chance of a ticket as someone that, you know, got 4 and hasn't got an interest in getting beyond that. So what is fair there? There's an argument that there is an unfairness in that membership system, but again, everywhere you move something and give credit for that, well, you change sales. It kind of almost needs like what's the problem we've got? What's the place we want to get to? And then find a solution in the middle. And it doesn't quite just feel like that just yet at the moment. Yeah, and I guess that sort of bleeds in, Beth, to the accessibility for fans with no credits, because this is, I think, is always going to be the most controversial part of all of this, really. It's not the most important part necessarily for me, but again, I'm going to be governed slightly by self-interest and by the fact that I get to go on my ticket most weeks, and if I don't get to go on my ticket one week, then I'll probably just go on a mate's or somebody else's. My big thing, which we'll come on to, is sort of accessibility for young and local fans, really. But I can understand why, if you're a fan who has had a membership for many, many years, has always struggled with the sales for one reason or another, even if that's just like an accessibility to the literal sales issue, then or being in work at the time it starts, for example, because a lot of them are 11 a.m. I know. So
that again is where I think like some of the biggest wrestles come, and I'm sure that's a big part of Jay's life and the conversations that he's been a part of. But there's some of the things that have been suggested by the club, like would a reduction in guaranteed games built up by people with credits be sort of punishing loyalty? It comes back to that thing that Jay asks, or ring fencing tickets for people with no loyalty. How do you guarantee that just doesn't just become another pot for touts to sort of pick up from that everyday fans then can't, or that there's too many everyday fans and then go into that pot and the touts are still in another more exclusive pot for them. There's sort of so many different strands to say, and even I sort of continued in my agenda, like ballot for away fixtures. Again, are you just guilty of punishing loyalty, because then there'll be some who miss out who go to loads of games. Again, the thing I always come back to is there's no perfect solution. I think I'm starting to sort of take the stance that Jay was talking about there in terms of the club just sort of making a policy. And listen, it's going to be unpopular to some people, it's going to be unpopular to others, but almost like getting to the point where you're like, we're going to be hard on this, and we're deciding we're going to reward loyalty, or we're deciding we want to get more new fans in the ground, and that would obviously be a huge bone of contention, particularly in the local area. I'd imagine, like at some point along the thing, I think the book has to stop with Liverpool just have to make a big decision here and deal with the unpopularity it might cause.
Yeah, they have to sort of decide what the biggest problem is, the biggest thing that they want to tackle and target is, and make the rules accordingly, because they're never, they're going back to that whole 500,000 people answering the survey, they're never going to satisfy. I mean, obviously not that many people will respond, but they're never going to satisfy that many people, and it isn't fair to put it on people like Jay to sort of try and make those decisions for everyone, because as much as these volunteers who work so hard can do a good job of fairly representing as many people as possible, they can't speak for, and you obviously don't claim to speak for every single Liverpool fan, so it's so difficult. And it's like the ballot for away fans, for example, in principle, that's probably a decent idea in terms of getting people who've got no chance to get to away games, and there's a level of fairness to that. But then if that then removes the opportunity for people,
like where there's Bournemouth, where there's like 1,500 can get
and someone goes, well, I've gone to every away game since 2016, and and now the allocation's even smaller, and it's just it's so difficult. And then the sort of the young and the local fans, I mean, it's going back to sort of my dad and stuff like that, and his mates, like the way they started going to the match was queuing up outside and getting a ticket. Now obviously now there's absolutely no way, and never again will that be a valid way for young fans getting into the ground. So how do you get fans into the ground? It's just it's a whole conundrum. And like you say, I think Liverpool do have to be the ones to make the decision on what they want to see going forward.
Never mind queuing up just to get in the grounds. Anyone who remembers I'm looking at Andy over there, who's about closer to my age than you both are, of even like the UEFA Cup runs in like the 2000s, queuing halfway down. I remember going to buy a Celtic ticket, played Celtic in 2003, and telling my mum, I was in year 9 at school, telling my mum, I'll be in school on time. Might only be a few minutes late, and got to Skerries Road at like 8 o'clock, and the queue was halfway down the road. I know anyone knows who Skerries Road, they're the street away from the ground, the other side of the Kemlin, got to school around midday. Got a ticket, I was made up. But like, buying tickets is hard. It's always been hard, no matter what. Like, the demand's always been big, and you've had to go out your way to try and buy them, whether that be online sales and stuff like that. So like, it's just a new problem. The problem just keeps existing. The thing, it comes back to the kind of conversation still about young people, is like, the club is going to have to intervene and decide it can't please everybody on this. It just isn't going to be possible. And my worry with some of the ticketing discussion that takes place, including the questions and the context for this that's been provided by the club, but certainly some of the response from fans, it's been in real danger of getting into a robbing Peter to pay Paul situation. So the 13 plus conversation, for example, or a ballot for away fans, if you're not in that pot, you want to go to the game. But my big question to the people will be, okay, well, which pot of the tickets are you going to take them from?
Yeah.
The fan who's got 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, 10 credits, are you going to maintain them if they don't get one because you've took some away to go to other people? But no one ever tells me that the hospitality tickets are on the table in this conversation. So if you think about, people say, well, there's a chunk of tickets that go to 13 plus members, about 10, 11,000 in that sale. But there's 11,000 hospitality seats inside Anfield as well. Are they going to give up some games? Go ahead, there's season ticket holders. I've got a season ticket. You've got a season ticket, 19 tickets on that. Am I going to give up some? I can get you tens of thousands of tickets if everyone's going to give up, but they don't want to put everyone on the table. So if everyone's going to get some pay and have some paying for everyone, but that includes your hospitality, includes your staff allocations and your player allocations, and includes your sponsors. Are they all given some up? No, because they're not mentioned in the survey, and that annoys me. Yeah. Loads of fans have said that to me. If you want to rob Peter to pay Paul, and you're going to make this interventionist approach, fine. Reward, give everyone the chance of the reward, but give everyone some of the pain. Because I think this is... I have said this to Liverpool directly. I think they need a more interventionist approach on Sexton. They're going to have to pick some winners and losers, unfortunately. The current method I was described as like salami slicing, so members get a little bit of pain, and they'll feel like they've had a lot of pain lately. And so season ticket holders have some change here, and aways have this bit of change. And if you give each category a little bit of pain, you might think, oh, we've shared it out. But everyone gets pissed off at that, whether they've been affected or not. So you're a 13+ member. If you weren't affected by the changes in the summer, you'll know mates who are. So you're pissed off on their behalf. So you're pissing everybody off at the minute. Tell us what your thing is you're trying to do. Is it more kids in the ground? Well, I'll just say this now. If getting more kids in the ground is your long-term issue you want to address, they're going to get old at some point, and then you're going to have to find more kids. And your biggest barrier to that is no kids getting on the season ticket waiting list anytime soon. Yeah. So I've asked Liverpool this, what are you going to do? My lad can't join a season ticket waiting list. He can get a membership, but I've got a season ticket. So I've got a membership in my missus' name and one in his name to start trying to build up some credits and see if they can get the tickets to start this year, see if he can pick up a couple of games. If he gets a ticket, my missus probably isn't going to take him all the time, being honest. So I'll pass my ticket on and go on his. I'm not to have a burner phone for that, or have a ticket on my phone. Now Liverpool will be annoyed at that, but I can't swap tickets physically via your system. So you want to reward getting kids in the ground. I'm trying to do that myself. I've got a self-interest in doing that. But your system doesn't also make that possible. My lad's 5, and I'm no one a thingy, but anyone in this room be the same. My nephew's the same. The eldest wants to go to a few games. I'm not buying them all a membership. I'd probably share one. So can you have shared memberships? This is the big discussion you got to have. But I'll tell you this now, and again, it's not to be, oh, well, what a great loss that'd be, or anything like that. It's not to make people feel sorry for them. But in 4 or 5 years' time, if I'm going the match and my lad still wants to start going the match, and he's the one who's like really into footy in our house, if he wants to start going the match and I'm leaving the house and leaving him behind, I won't go to the match anymore. Now again, that's not to say, well, that happens in life, but I have to lose out then and give up something because he can't start going. So how do I find him to go? Yeah. And I'll use him as a microcosm to this thing. How do you find that next generation? How does Andy do it with his kids regularly? How does anyone here do it when you've got kids? You having a ticket counts for nothing of getting your kids in the ground. There used to be enough tickets. Now there isn't. What is the solution to that? And I think it's creating better access, but I'd almost say it's got to be like a game of snakes and ladders. You've got to be able to climb the ladder, and if you don't go, you come down the ladder. Creating that system's a bit harder. They're the rules, but the foundations for that, it just feels like we need a big honest conversation with supporters and say there's going to be some winners and losers in this, and you might be a loser and you might be a winner, and you might be a winner now and you might be a loser in the future, but are you prepared to accept that? And if I'm honest, and for understandable reasons, in the same way I don't want to be for the scenarios I've just set out, no one wants to be that loser. So it's going to piss everyone off anyway. And then what you do? And that's the hard bit for me. And that's why, like, one of the big things we've said as a supporters board is take people on this journey, but do it gradually. Deal with one thing. We've done loads last year. Do one thing. Give us the chance to prove it works. Because this is the other thing, and you mentioned the tipping system before. I don't like saying this because there's lots of really good people who work at Liverpool who we've had lots of good conversations with. We've got really good working relationships. People don't trust in it working for them. They don't even trust in the technology at times. They don't trust it. Yeah. If you ask to say to them now, pick a side, they kind of, imagine one of those kind of podcast things now where they do, you strongly agree, does Liverpool's ticketing system work? More people would put in the disagree side than they would on the agree side. If you fix that, then I think there's a chance of building a system, but right now it doesn't feel like we're in a place where you could get most people to agree, and that's hard for all of those things we've just set out. Yeah, it was a big long monologue. That's sorry.
No, it's like there's some really good points in there, and I want to sort of highlight the young and local fans thing to sort of round this off, Beth, because that for me will always be the biggest issue, and it's where I'm prepared to take probably the most pain to see them get some gain from that. Currently in the ground they've got adult junior only areas. I believe there's one in the upper Anfield Road end. Yeah. Might be wrong on that. And then local sales. I've got an L postcode, so I'm part of the local sales despite not being from Liverpool necessarily. So where I fall into the Scousers versus OOTs argument, you can decide between yourselves. But L15 postcode, so stick that in your pipe. But these are being exploited by touts too. Like I've sat in those £9 seats and been sat next to people who, for better or for worse, I would argue, have not paid the same for that game. I've literally spoken to people who've been to games and told me how much they paid for their ticket, and I've told them I paid £9, and they've been like, well, I've been ripped off by someone there, and I'm like, yeah, you should probably go back to the person who's sold you that ticket. So there's that sort of situation again. Like for me, everything comes back to touting and stuff. But the idea of a local young adult area, that's one thing the club have pitched in the survey. That's a good idea to me if you can ensure those tickets get into the right hands. Priority for local juniors, again, I think is a good idea if you can police it properly. However, another thing that Jay doesn't necessarily mention there in his sort of argument and answer around all this, the biggest issue here is going to be price. Anfield is still one of the most deprived areas in the country. Like if you're going towards local juniors and setting a price point for them, is that the same price point you're going to for young adults, for 17 to 21 year olds? Because if it's £9 or whatever for a junior, it might need to be £9 again for young adults to ensure the level of accessibility is there that you need. So like any conversation that happens around young and local fans, the main thing I'm going to come back to is, well, two things really. One, how are you going to make sure you police it to make sure the tickets are getting into the hands of 17 to 21-year-old Scousers, or Scouse parents with their kids, or how are you making sure it's affordable for those groups of people? Yeah,
I mean, I think that about it getting into the right hands is the most important thing, because it is, in principle, it's such a good idea, and I think it's and this isn't saying like if you're not from Liverpool you shouldn't have a chance to go the game, because that's absolutely not what I'm saying, but I think that is ultimately a football club is built on its community and the people within that community, and giving people the opportunity to go. And as you say, for an affordable price point, I mean, the £9 ticket idea, when it is used correctly, is great. And it's great that the club has that. I don't know how many other clubs have a similar thing in the Premier League, but I think that is fantastic. I think maybe there is something similar that would need to be done with the sort of the local and the young adults tickets as well. But yeah, you don't want people in the local community to feel like they've never ever got a chance of going to a game. It is all about sort of bringing through the next generation, and that is really hard to balance with sort of the finances and everything that's involved now in modern football and modern football ticketing. But I think that for me, from the survey, from all of those points that you've mentioned, is probably the biggest thing that I would like to see personally. I think to see those changes made to help facilitate young people going to the game, and local people getting the chance to go to the game, to me is probably the best thing on there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to find ways to do that. Lord, and what I've said about my son wanting to, but you've got to find ways to do that. You've got to have the next generation that can go. Josh, you're relatively young. I started going in my teens, particularly started regularly going when I was 18. How many fans do that now? Not many. And you've got to find ways for them to go. And it's the £9, it's the youth section, it's got to be in place. You've got to find ways that people can take the kids, but also find ways that you keep filling that supply of those tickets, because you can't say to a 17 to 21-year-old, fine, we'd love you in the ground when you're 17 to 21, but when you're 22, you're good.
Yeah.
Because they turn an adult, and it's not just them then paying an adult price, it's, well, is there a ticket for them to go? So if they take one of them, that's one less in the youth pot. If they get an adult ticket, who do they get it off? That is where you might have to say to the people, well, and it's just an idea that people have floated to me, well, Sam, they do jump the queue on a season ticket, and it's a new young person who's been going regularly. They get a membership and creates more of a competition for membership. I don't know, but you've got to give people somewhere to go. You can't just say, well, we want you now because we want to tick a box on young people. My lad starts going at some point, he's going to be an adult. He needs an adult ticket then, and he might then have kids. Now, where's that applied? That's where you then build rules, but I think the one thing that's coming through from lots of people, and I think at the heart, and Liverpool have said this, is you need to get a younger group of supporters in, and you need to get a local group of supporters in. It's Liverpool Football Club, they recognise that. So that is the big thing, big question, and people listening to this might be going, yeah, we should do that. Big question Liverpool asking like so is, right, Sam, where are we taking the tickets from? Because 5 into 4 doesn't go currently, and add another group of people into it, could it go even less? That's the big conundrum we've kind of got.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this discussion, I'm sure, will continue to rumble on. You may be watching this and sort of thinking that because there's been a lot of agreement in the show that we are just one sort of collected voice on this. The Anfield Wrap is not that these three people in the room aren't that. We all have different experiences with getting tickets, you know, different ways of getting tickets whenever we do. Jay's referenced a few of his personal examples there. I've referenced a few of mine as well. Beth referenced that she now goes as press but used to go on a ticket. So don't just think this is one sort of, you know, group think of the Anfield Wrap. We'd be keen to hear your views on this as well. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know down in the comments, or if you're listening on whatever podcast app, get in touch with us on social media and let us know your views on this, because we're keen to hear all views, and I know the club are keen to hear all views as well. So if you have been sent that survey, or even if you haven't been sent that survey, there's a way you can find it on their website. So make sure you go and do that. Make sure that your voice is heard if you want it to be heard, because it's an important discussion. It's important that we all have our 2 cents in this. So nice one to Jay, nice one to Beth for giving theirs, and up the Reds.